Hey everybody, Jason and John here for Everyday Crypto, sponsored by CryptoTaxShield.com. Jason, thanks so much, man. I know it's been about a week since we did our last one. I had some things coming up, but lots is going on in the world right now geopolitically, and it all sort of trickles into where we are with crypto. So wanted to get you on a call and kind of go over where things are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could, please, if you find any educational or entertainment value in this at all, please like and subscribe. It helps us help you.
Absolutely.
And believe it or not, we are not financial advisors. Please do your own research.
You bet.
So, yeah, I've actually, this last couple of weeks, I've actually not been looking at crypto so much. I've been looking at this chess game that's being played out on the global stage.
Right.
And I don't watch traditional news just because I don't trust it, and I think it's all baloney. But what's going on is terrifying and extremely interesting from a chess game perspective.
Sure.
So Russia invades Ukraine, and America puts sanctions on Russians. We take all the money from our oligarchs. We watch their economy collapse.
Right.
That's financial warfare. I always said that the wars in the future will be financial warfare. They won't be so much land wars. And this is what we're seeing playing out. But what I knew at that time, I think what our government wasn't anticipating is there's a consequence to that move on the chessboard. And that move is now showing itself. So just a little information. This might get a little converted, but
sure.
So more on Earth, there's more fertile land in Russia and in Ukraine than anywhere else.
Right.
So therefore, most of the grains that are exported to countries come from those regions. Well, Russia's not exporting anything.
Mm-hmm.
And Ukraine isn't farming their land because they've got the war effort.
Right.
So where's that grain going to come from? China's already said they're hoarding all their grain.
Mm-hmm.
In America, I don't know if people know this or not, but the last couple of years, our grain-producing regions have been experiencing drought.
Right.
Which is greatly affecting our ability to produce our own grain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a few of the countries. There are massive countries like India, Indonesia, Africa, South America that need it. Like they can't grow their own grain at all.
Sure.
So there's that aspect. I imagine since grain is in everything you buy at the grocery store, that we're to expect dramatic increases in almost everything food related.
Oh, sure.
That's a little scary. But what's more scary is when we put the sanctions on Russia, we lost trust from Russia as far as the Federal Reserve, them having anything to do with our economy.
Right.
But it wasn't only Russia, it was China. And China just the other day came out, I don't know if it's they have a prime minister, I know it's not a president, but something like that, their head guy.
Yeah.
He came out and said, not verbatim, but in general, something like this. They are telling their banks to reassess risk management and to insulate against potential U.S. sanctions.
Mm.
What they're saying is they don't want to be subject to financial warfare from America.
Right.
Which means almost feels like they're preparing for some sort of war. And that's scary enough on its own.
Sure.
But what most people don't realize is we import most of our goods from China.
Mm-hmm.
In exchange, we send them trillions of dollars in cash.
Right.
Well, they don't use that cash. They use the yuan. They don't want to dilute the yuan by spending cash. So what they do is they send the cash back to America in return for debt. An IOU. We'll pay you more down the road. And China is the biggest holder of our debt.
Mm-hmm.
So now China has two options. Since they're not going to hold our debt, they need a store of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
There are two stores of wealth right now. There's gold and Bitcoin.
Right.
Gold's been it's been around longer.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with gold is you can't really spend it. Like if you want to buy $1 billion worth of grains from someplace, you can't really send $1 billion worth of gold without. It's very difficult. Like just transporting that much gold and the safety and insurance and the time it takes to do so. Whereas Bitcoin, you can send it in about 30 seconds.
Right.
So although this is extremely bullish for Bitcoin, is just terrifying on the U.S. economy, because if China's going to take that route, that means the U.S. government has to buy their own debts. And how they do that is by turning on the money printing machine again.
Right.
But we've seen what the consequences of that are, because they turned on the money printing machines for COVID. And now look, just because a bunch of Americans got $1,200 stimulus checks, look at the aftermath of that.
Right.
We're on a downward spiral. Inflation's out of control. Gas prices, and that's the other thing, is gas prices. Russia produces more oil and gas than any other country. We're clearly not going to take their gas. Europe says they're not going to take their gas, but where's it going to come from?
Mm-hmm.
That's a supply shock. We've already seen it at the gas stations, but we're still early on in this. Imagine a year from now, what happens to this whole. This chess game is so dangerous. And I talk to people like, let's say, like some of my wife's friends or something, and they were so happy that we stood up for Ukraine. And I'm like, yeah, that's great.
Right.
But we are not. There are consequences to being the world police.
That's right.
And we're going to feel it. It's not like we can do that and there won't be a consequence to those actions.
Sure.
So, as concerning as all this is to me, and as much as I enjoy watching the chess game getting played out on the global scale, I love what it means for Bitcoin.
Sure.
But I'm terrified what it means for the world economy, not just America, the world economy. Is going to be devastated if we continue down this path, which it seems like we are going to continue down this path.
Yeah, I mean, the path is right? Like we can see in front of us what's coming, and we still seem to be on that path, right? Which it's a little troubling. So as you're telling these sort of where things are, I'm thinking in my head, well, when we're done here, I'm just going to go hide under the desk for a while. Think about it. No, it is frightening. And you just sort of wish you could take a lot of politics out of this, and just focus on crypto above and beyond anything, because like we've talked about before, it really is the answer for a lot of these issues. But if the people at the top are creating a game that we can't even play, then what's the point?
I'll give you a terrifying scenario.
Oh, let's do that.
So after World War II, we owned all of Great Britain's debt because they were an ally of ours. So it was beneficial for us to keep their economy afloat.
Right.
They wanted to invade a certain country that we were friendly with. I forget what country it was. And they asked our permission, and we said no, and they said they're going to do it anyways.
Right.
And we said, great, we'll flood the market with your bonds/debt, and we'll watch your economy collapse. And they didn't invade.
Right.
China holds the mass majority of our debt,
right,
which is in form of bonds. They've got more financial warfare control over us than we do over them.
Right.
Really, the most we can do to them is say, we'll stop buying your goods. But that doesn't help us out at all, because America doesn't produce anything besides war machines and financial and financial instruments at this point.
Right.
And technology, but we don't produce goods and services.
Sure.
So,
yeah, it's troublesome. One thing that I've shocked some of my family members when they don't realize this is not only does China they're the biggest holder of our debt, as you said, but they also own a lot of U.S. property in terms of land. So farmland in the Midwest, lots of the coast of each side of the coast. That's troubling too for a lot of different reasons. But it's a scary time. It's a scary time to be. And as exhilarating as it is to see some of the crypto possibilities and some of the magic that we see that working in those veins. On the other side, on the flip side, on the reality side, the day in the every day in the trenches, it's scary. It is very scary.
Yeah, it's scary, super scary, and it's kind of frustrating because your average American doesn't know anything about this stuff.
That's right.
And they don't listen. Like, a lot of guys have been preaching this for several decades.
Yep.
We've been kicking this can down the road ever since the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
We have not had a surplus. We've had a debt
right
every year since then.
Yeah.
And in 2008, it just got out of control. When we bailed out the bankers because of that financial collapse.
Right.
Prior to then, like, the debt was unpayable, but now it's just a joke.
Yeah.
Like, to pay off the amount of debt we have now, I think every American would have to work a couple years and just give all their paycheck up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's completely unattainable. And the only reason why we're still afloat is because we are the world's currency.
Right.
But that's not infinite. It's very finite. I know China would love to be the world currency. They've made this very clear. Their monetary policy is probably an attack on the dollar. Like, and here's the other thing is Americans are always in it for the short-term gratification. And we never think about what happens 50 years down the road.
Yep.
Well, if you know anything about the Chinese, they are the exact opposite. They are always thinking 100 years down the road. Mm-hmm. They will take punishment now for long-term gratification.
Right.
And they've been doing this for a very long time, and they've set themselves up very well for this situation. So I kind of feel like China's playing 3D chess, and America's kind of playing checkers. Mm-hmm. We have short-term politicians that only care about what happens in their term.
Yep.
And they don't want to be the bad guy who says, hey, guys, we got to stop this. Let's take a little bit of pain so we can stop the long-term destruction. Right. No politician ever says that. They just keep adding more debt, and kicking that can down the road.
Yeah.
Well, that road ends at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the terrifying thing.
Yeah.
If you know your history, the Roman Empire didn't collapse because of, invaders,
right,
like most people think. It collapsed because they spread themselves too thin on too many war fronts, and they diluted their currency.
Yep.
And that was it.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, crazy times, man. Yeah, no, it's it's fascinating from a geopolitical situation, and going back to the political side of it, with the politicians, if I don't know, when you take comfort away from the population, then we start looking closer at those folks, and they don't want that, right? So that's why a lot of that debt just comes in the way of comfort for us, so that we're satiated. We're not gonna poke the bear, and we're not gonna ask questions. But at some point, you're right that road ends, and a lot of times it seems like it might be ending at a cliff here pretty soon. So.
Yeah, a cliff for sure.
Yeah.
There are so many possible black swan events that could happen. Like, there's a lot of cool things that are happening, but there's also some very terrifying things that could easily send this thing into overdrive.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, food shortages. If China actually declares they're getting involved, let's just say they actually team up with Russia, like, it would be an epic storm reflective of like 1929.
Yep.
Like, I really feel like that's a possibility.
100%.
And the sad thing is there's no safe haven right now. Like, the dollar's not safe because it's melting. Every time they print off a dollar, they make your dollar worth less, and they're printing off a lot of dollars. Mm-hmm. Gold's not safe. It's still sitting at its all-time high from the early 90s.
Right.
Stock markets are getting pummeled, and as the government, keeps unloading their balance sheets, it's going to pummel more. Yeah. We've got more interest rates hikes coming, which is going to be bad for all assets like the stock market, crypto, and then the housing market. They just came out today and said that the expected housing market numbers have come in dramatically lower.
Right, I saw that.
Which means that we're on a reversal on that, which we've been predicting that for the last 6 months, but it's finally happening.
Right.
So where's the safe haven?
Right.
There isn't one. Like, it's just, it feels like there's more pain to come.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong. I mean, I've been wrong before, but
but look, I mean, as much fun as we have on these episodes talking about fun projects and stuff, this is important for people to know too. It's all intertwined, and it all affects everything. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I appreciate you sitting down and talking about this stuff today. It's scary, but you know what? Like I'm a perennial optimist, so I think cooler heads can prevail. And maybe I'm foolishly optimistic, but we'll see what happens.
Where are the cooler heads at right now?
Well, two of us are sitting right here. I don't know if we're in charge of anything, but we'll.
You got Putin, who's an absolute madman. This, I mean, there's rumors that he has actually become mentally unstable
and sick too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about his history, he's a great chess player and a great judo player. And judo is much like physical chess, so he's not going to tap out.
Yep.
And in America, what do you got right now? What do you got? You have a Democrat president who doesn't seem to get it.
Doesn't seem to be well either. So
yeah, it doesn't really seem to be like all there. I mean, I don't know. I hope I'm wrong, but
yeah,
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go into tomorrow with some optimism, but again, it might be misplaced, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So
good for you, man. I'm optimistic too. Sure, why not?
No, yeah. Look, things can always get better, but they can always get worse. So, but that's why these kinds of shows are important. Is that we're not going to pull punches. We're going to tell it as it is. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, Jason, I appreciate it, man. We'll do another one soon.
John, thank you as always. I appreciate it.
You bet. Take care.
You too.